Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
I'm sure everyone has experienced that one late-night phone call, the kind that keeps you up for the rest of the night. Well, mine came just the other night, but instead of a wrong number, a drunken ramble, or a relative with bad news, it was my best friend, Jake Morrison. Jake and I had been inseparable since childhood. We met when we were toddlers at least, that's how I remember it. But that call, that moment is burned into my memory. The phone rang at 3 a.m., yanking me out of deep sleep. Since it was on my side of the bed, I answered groggy. "Hello," I muttered, annoyed. "Ryan, I'm so sorry, man. I wish it had never happened, but I have to tell you before I die." "What are you talking about?" "Why?" "Ryan, your wife and I have been having an affair for the last 6 or 7 months. I can't keep this up anymore. I had to tell you before I died." Then a gunshot. Silence. Beside me, Jessica stirred, half awake. She mumbled, "Who was that?" "No one," I answered quickly. "Just a wrong number, probably some drunk." "It sounded like Jake." "But that doesn't make sense," she said, turning over and drifting back to sleep. But I couldn't. My mind was racing. Had Jessica really been cheating on me with my best friend? What had changed in our lives 6 or 7 months ago? Surely I would have noticed something. But as I lay there thinking, pieces started falling into place. Lately, she'd been working late at least once a week. There was no pattern. Sometimes she'd let me know in advance. Other times she'd call at the last minute. It had never seemed suspicious before. Her job involved overseas clients, which meant odd hours now and then. But now, in the light of Jake's confession, everything took on a different meaning. And then there was our relationship. Our intimacy had dwindled over the past year from 2 or 3 times a week to barely once a week. Then, about 6 months ago, it became even more infrequent. The last time had been after a night of dancing at the Skyline Club. She had been unusually passionate that night. I had thought life was good. Our daughter, Haley, was married to a great guy, a Navy captain, and expecting her first child in 6 months. Our son, Tyler, was finishing his junior year at Colorado State. We had been married for nearly 23 years. But now, if what Jake said was true, everything I believed about my life and marriage was a lie. And one question haunted me: did Jake really shoot himself? Or was this some kind of cruel joke? But was that enough information to go on? Plus, the lack of sex? I mean, when Haley left home and Tyler was gone a lot, our sex life took a huge turn up from maybe once a week to almost every night. And then when Tyler left for college, it was every night and a wild time on the weekends. Then, about a year ago, that tapered off to what I was experiencing now. Okay, anything else? Was she spending more money? Did she buy sexy underwear? Was she dressing nicer for work? No. None of those things were occurring. So, was this a prank or what? I decided that I needed to get some sleep. Today was a workday and I needed rest. I rolled over and went back to sleep. I would pursue this tomorrow, well, later today. Then, about noon that day, I heard on the radio that a man was found in his home, shot in an apparent suicide. The man had been despondent over the death of his wife 18 months ago and had apparently taken his own life to join her. The name was being withheld pending notification of next of kin. Now that was a jolt. Jake's wife, Amanda, had been killed in a car accident about 18 months ago. It couldn't be Jake, right? The description given was the same neighborhood in the city where Jake lived. Oh wow. This was becoming too suspicious. If that was the case, then was what he confessed this morning really true? Were he and my wife having an affair for the last 6 months? I guess it was going to be an interesting home life tonight when I confronted Jessica with Jake's deathbed confession. Now, I wondered if the conversation had been picked up by the answering machine. I had heard it click when I finally got the phone to my ear last night. Well, early this morning. Yes, it would be a very interesting evening tonight. I was able to do a few things on the computer at work, and then planned on taking a long lunch today to move a few things at the bank. I called my family lawyer and tried to get an appointment for today or tomorrow. I had an appointment for today at 5. At 11, I rushed home with a pocket recorder and recorded the phone call from the answering machine, and then erased the message. Then it was off to the bank to set up a new account in my name only. I moved most of the money from the checking account there. I also transferred half of the savings from one account to a new savings account and took all of our special savings account that we paid for Tyler's college with. I cashed in 2 of the 3 CDs we had and added that to the new account. I would give up some of the money, and I knew it, but I wanted it out of her hands. I didn't want to confront her and find out that I had no access to money to pay bills or anything else. She was the one who cheated. Let her find money to pay a lawyer. I paid all the bills by computer. I was much savvier about computers than Jessica. She used them at work but wasn't fluent in all the software like I was, as I needed to be for my job. With all that accomplished, I went back to work and tried to get something done. But I kept going back to that phone call. Had Jessica tried to comfort Jake and things went too far? Or did she just want to screw him again? Yeah, again. She and Jake were steadies in high school and the first couple of years of college, until Jake met Amanda Simmons right at the end of our sophomore year at a party that we attended. I was with my girlfriend, Megan Harper, at the time, but I really wanted Jessica. But from a pinky swear at 13, we swore that we would not try to date another's girl until we knew it was over. A week after that party, Jake broke up with Jessica, and she was devastated. Jake and I met Jessica when we started high school in 9th grade. This was just a year after our pinky swear, and although I was head over heels in love with Jessica, she was Jake's girl. Maybe it was only lust, but I knew what I wanted. Shortly after starting college, I met Megan, and we seemed to click nicely. But there was something missing. It was something I could never explain. But I just couldn't give my all to Megan. I think she knew it too, even though we did become steadies. Just not engaged. After Jake dumped Jessica, she came to me to cry on my shoulder. And I think we both knew within a month that something very tangible was there, staring us in the face. I tried to let Megan down easy, but I think she saw it coming too, and we broke up with no hard feelings. The next week, Megan was with Chris Baxter, and they eventually married. As for Jessica and me, we took it slow, and soon, we realized that there was someone wonderful in our lives. It took almost a year for Jessica to accept that Jake was truly gone, and we could occasionally double date. We had been friends for too long not to work things out between us. Jake and Amanda married a year after graduation, and a year later, Jessica and I married that I had stayed an extra year in school and gained my MBA. Jessica graduated with a BBA in marketing. When I finally graduated, Jessica was already gainfully employed. Jessica worked for Harper & Associates Marketing Research Company. I found a job at Weston & Company, management consulting. We evaluated different companies to see if we could make them more efficient and more cost-effective. We had Haley during our first year of marriage, and 2 years later, Tyler came along. Because Jessica had such a hard time with Tyler, he was so big she had her tubes tied after the birth and before she went home. Tyler was 14 pounds and 21 inches long at birth. Once Tyler started school full-time, Jessica went back to work at Harper & Associates, pretty much in the same position she had when she got a leave of absence to have Haley. Things went well for us. I was now a vice president at Weston, and Jessica was a VP over at Harper. Both of us traveled a bit over the years, but we managed to work it out so that both of us were never gone at the same time. So we fast forward a few years, and now both children are out of the house. About then, tragedy struck hard in Jake's life when he lost Amanda. Their 3 kids were all grown and on their own or in school, so it was just the 2 of them. A drunk driver broadsided Amanda's car at 5 p.m. one night as she drove home. The guy hit the driver's door and Amanda was killed instantly, part of the door frame being torn loose and entering her head just in front of her ear. Jake was inconsolable. Jessica and I were there for him, but it took months before he could function properly. He went into a deep depression, and for days on end he would not eat or do anything. He quit his job about 6 weeks after the funeral. He had won a lawsuit against the driver and the bar owner who allowed him to drink as much as he did. His blood alcohol was 3 times the legal limit, and he was only 5 blocks from the bar when he plowed into Amanda's car. He never even applied the brakes, and the cops estimated he was doing nearly 50 miles per hour given that Amanda's car was pushed 150 feet into the other street away from where the collision occurred. Either Jessica or I was at his house every night for at least 6 months. Finally, Jake started coming out of the depression, and you could see snippets of the old Jake again. Then, about 3 months ago, he seemed to be back to normal for the most part. There were still days when he would slide back for a while, but he was healing. That phone call last night really knocked me for a loop. First, I could maybe see where Jake would not be totally responsible in clinging to Jessica, but for Jessica to cheat on me and have been doing it for 6 months, that was the shock. My God, what was I going to do without her? I certainly couldn't just let this go. I had to get some answers. Like why? What did I do wrong? And again, why? My secretary, Lauren Vance, buzzed me and said, "Ryan, I asked you to remind me of your appointment at 5 and you need to get going if you're going to be on time." I thanked Lauren and said I was on my way. My lawyer, Adam Spencer, said I was pretty much screwed. Jessica would get half of everything, no matter what. That sucked. She did wrong and broke my heart, but she got to keep half of everything we had accumulated over the years? He thought that since we each had a good retirement plan and they were about the same, that we could just keep those. But the house, the money, the cars, and everything else would be divided between us. I did tell him what I had done that morning. He said I would have to give a lot of that back, but to leave it for now. The evidence I had was useless unless there was a letter from Jake confessing his sins. The tape confession probably wouldn't be admissible. At least we didn't have young children to complicate the division, so probably no alimony and no child support. So it would just be a division of assets and that's it. Adam, I want you to go ahead and start the paperwork for a divorce. Whatever grounds you want, but I want out. Period. She cheated and there was no excuse for that. If it had been once or maybe twice, I could see it, and maybe we could do some counseling or something to patch things up. But this was going on for over 6 months. No, I can't accept that. No matter what the reason. Okay, Ryan. He'll have everything ready tomorrow and get it before a judge tomorrow afternoon. We can file and have her served. Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate it. I left Adam's office and drove towards home. I took the long way around, just killing time, trying to think of how I was going to approach Jessica. Day 1. Evening. It really didn't matter much, as she was not home when I got there. I arrived home just after 7, and the house was dark, lonely, and empty of life. I checked around and all of Jessica's things were still here, so she hadn't left me. Yet, I tried her cell phone, but it must have been off as it went straight to voicemail. I left her a message that I was home and that I would like to know when she might be home. I then called her office. She wasn't there either. Her parents lived up near Denver, so I called there to see if she had let them know where she was. Nope, nothing there either. So I tried Haley. She said that her mom had called and said that she was very upset about something and that she needed a shoulder to cry on. But since Haley was now in Jacksonville, Florida, with her Navy husband, it would be a little hard to cry on her shoulder. She did ask why Jessica hadn't turned to me. Jessica said that I probably wouldn't understand, as it was women's stuff. Haley, I think that your mother and Jake were having an affair, and I think Jake killed himself last night. I got a call and he was apologizing to me. And then I heard a shot, and the line went dead. I think that your mother doesn't want to confront me, and she is afraid of what I will do or say. If what I think is true, then I will divorce her. This supposedly been going on for at least 6 months. Once or maybe even twice I could maybe understand. But for 6 months? No, I can't accept that. I hope you understand, Haley. But I have to do this for my own sanity. Oh, Daddy, I'm so sorry. I don't understand why she would have done that. But if what you say is true, then I'm with you. Kick her to the curb. Sean just got back from work. Call me later, okay, Dad? I love you, Daddy. You'll get through this. Yeah, baby girl. I'll get through this. Love you too. I rummaged through the fridge, looking for something for dinner, and found some leftover chicken and mashed potatoes. I heated them up, sat back in my recliner, and let the TV lull me to sleep. I woke up at midnight, put the dishes in the sink, and went to bed. Day 2, morning I called in sick and told my secretary, Lauren, that I would be in meetings all day and was not to be disturbed by anyone, especially my wife. However, if it was truly urgent, she could reach me at home. I waited for Jessica to come home to see what she would take and if she would even show up. I didn't have to wait long. I had parked my car on the street behind us and walked back to the house. I was sitting in my den, just waiting. I had a warm cup of coffee when I heard the kitchen door open and close. I heard footsteps in the living room, then down the hall towards the bedrooms. I rose, put my cup down, and walked down the hall in my stocking feet. I stood by the master bedroom door where I could hear clothes rustling. I pushed open the door. As it swung all the way open, it squeaked. There stood my wife with an open suitcase and clothes in her hands. Her mouth opened, ready to scream. Going somewhere, dear? Yes. I thought I would go away for a few days until things settle down a little. I guess you've heard that Jake committed suicide yesterday morning? I heard from the detective that he left a note. I assume you were notified too. No, dear, I was not notified. I let the sarcasm drip from my voice. I was just the one person in the dark about this whole sordid affair. The phone call early yesterday morning was Jake. He called to confess and to tell me he was so sorry for what he had done to me. Then I heard the shot that killed him. I really did expect to hear from you last night. I called everyone I knew that might have known where you were. But no one knew. You didn't even have the decency to call me and tell me that you wouldn't be home. That's not a nice thing to do to your loving, clueless husband. Ryan, for what it's worth, I truly am sorry. Things just kind of happened. And before I knew it, we were making love and it brought back so many memories of long ago. Somehow, I just got lost in my memories and before I knew it, too many things had happened too many times to tell you about it. I knew that I could never tell you the truth. That I still loved Jake. I loved you, Ryan. I really did. But somehow, when I was comforting Jake, or trying to get him over the depression from losing Amanda, I felt the love that was there so long ago, and it suddenly burst into flame again. And I was lost. She wiped at her face. I thought I would go away for a while, maybe to Florida to see Haley, and help her when the baby comes. Maybe by then you won't be so mad that you want to kill me too. She lost it then, sinking to the floor, sobbing. I don't think going to Haley's is a good idea, Jess. After our talk last night, I don't think you'd be welcome. I think you need to go home to Denver and think things over while I divorce your cheating ass. My voice rose in anger as I finished that last statement. I willed my inner self to get a grip. Yelling and screaming at each other was not going to help at all. Jessica, there's another big suitcase in Tyler's room. I'll get that for you. I would pack for at least a month, Jess. I'd say that would be a minimum. Also, I would appreciate it if you didn't fight the divorce. I know I have so very little evidence to go on, but over 6 months of screwing my very best friend is going to be hard to get over. Once you get settled up in Denver, let me know who your lawyer is so we can get things started on rectifying this mess you made. I'll leave you in peace for now. If you need help, just let me know. I'll be in the den thinking. And drinking. When I brought the suitcase in, Jessica was still on the floor, sobbing into the clothes she had in her hands. I left the suitcase and went back to the den. I grabbed my mug of coffee, poured another half-full cup, heated it up in the microwave, and then put some Tullamore Dew into the cup to bring it to 3/4 full. As I debated whether to add some more dew, I figured to hell with it. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. I sat back and tried my damnedest not to think of anything at all. I just wanted some peace and quiet. And to go back to my life of a year ago. But that wasn't going to happen. The next best thing was total numbness. So I had a good start with my own brand of Irish coffee. About a half hour later, Jessica came to the doorway of the den. Ryan, believe me, I am so sorry about all of this. You're right. I need to take some time and understand what all I have done to you. And the children. Both Jake's and ours. Detective Miles said that Jake left 3 letters. I was only privy to the one addressed to me. I think one was addressed to you as well. If you'll help me take my cases to the car, I'll leave you alone. I will call Adam Spencer once I find a lawyer in Denver. I'll be at my parents' house for a while until I can decide what to do. I think I finally realized what I have lost by being stupid and trying to relive old memories. For that alone, I am truly sorry. I still love you, Ryan. But I can understand why you want nothing to do with me anymore. Goodbye. She left the doorway. I reluctantly got up, grabbed the big suitcase, and put it in her trunk. I turned around and started back into the house when another car pulled up alongside the curb. It was an older black Ford Crown Victoria. A typical police car. A tall, thin man got out and watched as Jessica drove away. Mr. Callahan? Ryan Callahan? Yes. May I help you? Yes, I believe you can. I'm Detective Miles. I'd like a few words with you if I may. Sure. Come on in. I'll put some fresh coffee on. I think I'll need a cup and I'm sure you could use some decent coffee too. Yes, that would certainly be welcome. My last cup was pretty old. We walked into the house and went straight to the kitchen. I started the pot I had fixed earlier but never started. Excuse me a moment while I get my cup from the den. I'll be right back. I grabbed my half-finished cup and then sat down at the kitchen table. I finished the cup. My Tullamore Dew was still sitting on the counter but out of the way. And I wasn't sure if Detective Miles saw it. Detective Miles took a seat across from me at the kitchen table. Mr. Callahan, I saw your wife was packed and leaving. Do you know where she's headed? Yeah, she's going to her parents' place up in Denver. She's going to be staying there for a while. We both felt it would be best for right now. I can barely stand the sight of her, but I'm sure you know all that. As a matter of fact, I think I do, he said. I take it you knew a Jacob Morrison? I let out a bitter laugh. I guess you could say that. I've known Jake since we were toddlers, maybe 42 or 43 years. He was my very best friend. Next to my wife, well, until recently, that is. He called me the other night to confess his affair with my wife. I thought I heard a shot over the phone, but I couldn't be sure. I'm surprised you didn't report it, Detective Miles said. The call came at 3 a.m. Why would I report that? I thought it was a prank call. It sounded sort of like Jake. But then, Jake was always a jokester. Well, he used to be one. Since Amanda was killed, he didn't joke around much anymore. I heard the coffee maker beep, signaling it was done. Oh, coffee's ready, I said, standing up. I'll get you a cup. I went to the cupboard, grabbed a big mug like mine, and poured us both a cup. I put a drop or two more of dew in mine, then put the ceramic jug back up in the cupboard. Detective Miles caught sight of it. May I ask what's in the jug? He said, nodding toward it. That? I smirked. That is sometimes referred to as my medicine. It's a blend of old Irish whiskey Tullamore Dew. My dad got the jug when he was stationed in England. I love the jug, and he found one, probably one of his old ones, and he presented it to me on my wedding day. I remember him calling it his medicine jug. He said that when I was most upset, to take some of this medicine, and things would get better. It was full when he gave it to me. Over the years, I've only filled it back up once. Would you like a taste? No. Maybe sometime later. I think I can understand why you need it now, Miles said. Your life has pretty much been turned upside down the past couple of days. You could say that. I took a sip of my spiked coffee. I did wonder why you were just getting around to talking to me today, I said. Jessica said you talked to her yesterday afternoon and then you wait until today to talk to me. Why? Mr. Callahan, I needed Mrs. Callahan's information right away because of the letters Mr. Morrison left in his printer. Plus, I needed more information on how he died before I talked to you. I wasn't sure at first if you were a suspect or a victim. Now, I know you were a victim and therefore I need to speak about other things and treat you as such. I'm sure you can appreciate that. Yeah. Jessica said Jake left 3 letters. One was for her and she thought one was for me. I assumed the other was for his children. I sighed. I don't know if you knew, but when Amanda was killed by that drunk driver, Jake nearly committed suicide then. He was so depressed from losing the love of his life that he wanted to join her. Jessica and I talked him out of it. He needed to go on for his children's sake, if nothing else. It was a long, slow road, but he was coming back. 6 months ago, he seemed to turn a corner. But that also coincided with the start of their affair. I know that now, but I didn't at the time. I just knew that he seemed happier. You see, before he met Amanda, Jessica and he were an item for several years. About 6, I guess. Then he met Amanda and things changed. Jessica was available. I fell in love with her the first day we met, but I was too shy. Jake got to her first and I had to wait. I hoped that someday he would let her go, and I would be there to pick up the pieces. It happened in our 2nd year in college when he met Amanda. And when he dumped Jessica, I was there to pick up the pieces of her heart and love her like I had wanted to for so long. For me, it was a dream come true. Yesterday, that dream was shattered. I'm still in a kind of shock. How could they betray me like that? Jessica was my life for 23 years and I never knew that she and Jake were together. In hindsight, I can see I was blind to what had been going on the last 6 to 7 months. Jake seemed to be getting much better. I just didn't realize that he and Jessica were reliving old memories and making new ones. I took a long sip of my coffee. I looked at Detective Miles. I guess I've been doing all the talking. You had some questions, Detective Miles. Please proceed. Well, to be honest, a lot of my questions have just been answered. He hesitated. Ryan, you don't mind if I call you Ryan, do you? Not at all. I would prefer that to Mr. Callahan. I always look around for my dad when I hear that. I've been answering to Ryan for a lot of years, so that's fine. I'm Bernard. Well, Benny to my friends. Nice to meet you, Benny, I said. Benny reached into his suit jacket and extracted 3 folded pieces of paper. He looked at one, then another and gave one to me. Here's what Jake left for you, he said. I took the letter in my hands. Jake's handwriting was unmistakable. I unfolded the paper and began to read. Ryan, I don't suppose that I am one of your favorite people right now, but I really have to tell you just how sorry I am. For the past 42 years, we have had a pact. A pact that we took with all the passion and childish devotion of the oath we made that spring day when we were 13. God, were we naive, foolish idiots back then. But we believed. And we swore on everything we thought was holy. Back then, we had already made the blood oath of friendship. From when we were 5-year-olds and first learned of such a thing. My God, my finger bled for so long. We both thought I would bleed to death. Then we had the bright idea to spit on it and wrap it in moss. We never knew that it was the right thing to do. We were so ignorant of things back then. But we also became fast friends. Forever. That is why it is so hard for me to write this letter to you. To apologize for what I have taken from you. You have no idea how much I wish I could turn back the clock and not betray you, my dearest friend. We have been more like brothers than anything I have ever heard of. I think we acted more like twins than brothers. But I guess we never quite had that part where we could feel what the other was doing. If we could have had that, then what happened that one night would have been enough. And you would have known then what you know now. I laid the letter on the table. I clenched my jaw. And I kept reading. Jake's letter continued. I never wanted to make love to Jessica. But I was not in my right mind. Ryan. I was living in the past. I thought that she was Amanda and things just went from there. I found out later why Jessica allowed me to go where I did. She still carried a flaming torch for me. And even though she loved you, she never stopped loving me. I am so very sorry for that. I never wanted anything to happen. But it did. Once I tasted the past, I wanted more. And so did Jessica. It was like a raging forest fire within each of us. And there was no way to stop it. Until it became too late. For the past 3 weeks, I have been trying to work up the nerve to call you and tell you what we have done. But I kept chickening out. You didn't know. And as near as Jessica could figure, you didn't have a clue. I'm sure that now, as you read this letter, things have become apparent. Now, those things that were overlooked and dismissed as nothing make sense. I am so sorry, Ryan. I decided to stop hurting you, Jessica, and myself anymore. And end this. I hope beyond hope that Amanda will forgive me. I will call you after I finish this letter. And confess it all to you. And then I shall swallow my gun. And do what has to be done. I love you, brother. And I hope that you can forgive me. And your love for us living in the past at your expense. Goodbye, Ryan. Until we meet again. I'm so sorry. I set the paper on the table. It all came out at once. I cried like I had never cried before. Even at Amanda's funeral, this hit me harder. Harder than when my dad died of cancer 3 years ago. I was beside myself with grief. My very best friend in the world was gone, and he had taken my second best friend with him when he left. I lay my head on the table, and the hurt would not stop. I had no idea when Detective Miles left, but he locked up the house and left me alone in my grief. Day 2 evening, it was dark when I awoke. Stiff. Hungover. All the dew I had consumed on an empty stomach had finally caught up with me. I hadn't eaten anything since early last night. The chicken and mashed potatoes didn't last all day. Funny thing about that. I awoke and Benny was gone. The letters were gone. Jessica was gone. And I was alone. Totally alone in the world. I had no friend. I had no wife. And nothing was left in my life except my children. And they were scattered to the winds. Well, kind of. Tyler was in Fort Collins. Haley and Sean were in Jacksonville. And Jessica was on her way, if not already in Denver. I was all alone. With my grief. Even Detective Benny Miles had deserted me. I reached for my medicine. And it was not where it normally was. I think Benny hid it. To protect me from myself. I think I may have found a friend. But then again, maybe not. Only time would tell. I tried to get up. But I crumpled to the floor. My legs wouldn't work. Well, they didn't seem to want to hold me upright anyway. I hurt. In so many places. That I just stretched out there on the kitchen floor. And went back to weeping. I awoke much later. And crawled into the living room. I managed to crawl onto the couch. I grabbed the Afghan thrown over the back, pulled it to me, and slept some more. Asleep, I dreamed of things before. I dreamed of Jake's call, and the shot that I was sure I heard. That was the shot that ended my life. If only it had been me instead of Jake. Then I would no longer be in this misery. But someone had to live and carry on. Why me? Day 3 morning, I awoke to a banging in my head. Now, why was my head banging? I knew damn well I hadn't had that much to drink last night. Then I heard a bell. Damn. Was I going crazy? Then my mind actually woke up. And I realized that it was the front door. Someone was banging. and ringing my doorbell. I rolled off the couch and half crawled, half stumbled to the door. Using the doorknob, I was able to become erect. I unlocked the door. As I yelled, "Just a damn minute!" I yanked open the door and nearly got smashed in the face with a huge fist. That fist belonged to none other than Detective Benny Miles. "What the hell do you want?" I grumbled. "Have you been here all night, Ryan?" Benny asked. "Can I come in? I have some bad news." "Of course." After you left, I crawled to the sofa and fell asleep again. "Why?" I sat on the sofa. Benny sat in the uncomfortable wingback chair Jessica just had to have. "Ryan, there was a huge wreck on I-25 up near Pueblo. It rained pretty hard up there yesterday afternoon, and some cars skidded out of control trying to stop too quickly. 9 semis, 13 cars. 17 people were killed outright. About 30 injured in that mess. I'm sorry to say this, but your wife was one of those killed. She was between 2 big semis and was crushed. They had to cut her body out of the wreckage. I'm so sorry to have to be the one to tell you this, but I thought you needed to know." I started to laugh, and I laughed so hard, I fell off the couch onto the floor. Tears streamed down my face as I laughed. That strange combination of joy and sorrow laughter. I curled up in a ball fetal position and continued to cry. The laughing stopped as suddenly as it started. And then the grief hit, like sledgehammer blows. Even though my wife of 23 years had cheated on me with my best friend, I still loved her. So much. This was tearing me apart. I was glad she was dead because she could no longer hurt me. In one way, I was glad she hurt, almost the same way I hurt with her betrayal. But I was sad too, because she and I had had over 22 wonderful years together. The good outweighed the bad, but the bad was too new, and the hurt would continue on for a long time. I'm sure Benny thought I was completely insane, but the turmoil within me caused me to act like I did. I finally calmed myself down, slowly uncurled my body, and opened up to the fact that divorce was no longer an option. I was now a widower, just like Jake had become. And the irony? Both of us lost our loves to car accidents. Karma had evened the score. I became numb. Nothing could touch me now. Not the pain of betrayal. Not even grief. Detective Miles stood up and walked into the kitchen. I heard the familiar sounds of coffee being made. A moment later, he returned with a glass of water and 2 aspirin. "Here, Ryan. Drink this. You need something to calm you down." "Where are the aspirin?" I mumbled. "Second cupboard on the left, bottom shelf," I replied automatically. Benny disappeared for a moment and came back with another glass of water and 2 pills. I took them and swallowed some warm water, letting the pills dissolve quicker. I looked at Detective Miles. "Karma is a bitch sometimes." "Huh?" Benny nodded. I continued, my voice hollow. "I suppose you thought I lost my mind there for a while." He sighed and sat back down. "Ryan, you'd be surprised how many people act exactly like you did. I've seen it happen too many times in this job. It's a survival mechanism that we all have. When the load gets too heavy to handle, people kind of reset. During the reset, almost anything can happen. Anger, grief, joy, depression, all hit at once and the mind can't cope. So it shuts down. It reboots like a computer. And when it comes back online, it can finally process things normally. I've seen it happen 100 times. The strong ones, like you, make it back." I let his words sink in. I had nothing left in me to argue. Nothing left to say. I just sat there, empty. "Ryan, are you going to be okay?" I looked at him. Was I? "Yeah, Benny. I think I will make it. Eventually." I ran a hand over my face. I just don't know what my life looks like now. How do you go on after losing the 2 people you trusted the most? "You do it one day at a time," Benny said. "Like a long walk. Put one foot in front of the other and just keep stepping. If necessary, take it 1 hour at a time. You'll make it, Ryan. You're one of the strong ones. Trust me." I gave a weak chuckle. "Why are you taking such an interest in me, Benny? I'm sure you have plenty of cases to work on besides checking in on a guy whose life got blown up in 48 hours. He hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "Because I see a lot of myself in you," he admitted. "My wife cheated on me. Not with my best friend, but with 2 of my close friends. Like you, I was blindsided. And the pain of that betrayal, It all came back to me while I was talking to you. I sat up straighter. Benny continued. I never got the closure that you got from the letters Jake wrote. And somehow those letters, they helped me get over the pain I thought I had buried years ago. I divorced my wife and never saw her after I confronted her. She treated it like it was nothing. When I told her I knew, she said, "So what?" And then she left. She came back the next day when I was at work, took all her things and disappeared. I knew where she was. I had plenty of friends who kept tabs. But I never saw her again. That was 5 years ago. And all that pain and anger festered under the surface until yesterday. He shook his head. I stopped on my way home last night and found some of your medicine. I sat there with 2 fingers in a glass, a couple of ice cubes, and went over my life. I decided enough was enough. I called my ex-wife. I told her I was pissed about the way she had treated me. And I asked her why she did it. I leaned forward. And what did she say? Benny sighed. She said it was because of my job. She never knew when she'd get that phone call or knock on the door telling her I was dead. It drove her to look for companionship, which led to an affair. And then another. By then, she didn't care anymore. He ran a hand through his hair. Knowing why when it all started. It gave me the closure I was missing. For that, I thank you, Ryan. Then, this morning, when we got the call about Jessica's accident, I felt like I needed to be the one to tell you. I felt a kinship with you after yesterday. So I said I'd do it. He looked at me seriously. I like you, Ryan. I think we could be friends. I let out a small, tired chuckle. Yeah, Benny. I think being friends would be nice. I seem to have lost a couple along the way. Jake's funeral was 3 days later. His parents were still alive. Amanda's parents and his children came, too. I spoke about what a great friend Jake had been. Even Benny attended. Jessica's funeral was in Boulder 2 days after Jake's. Haley and Sean flew in. Tyler drove up from Fort Collins. Jessica's parents were there, too. When Amanda died, Jake, Jessica, and I had all prepaid for funeral expenses. Never realizing we would need them this soon. I gave the eulogy at Jessica's funeral, too. I spoke of our life together. And how I would miss her. Nothing was said about the affair. It seemed only a handful of people knew. And I wanted to keep it that way. 2 weeks later, I went back to work. Suddenly, I became the catch of the day. Women who had been nice to me before were suddenly flirting. Even my secretary, Lauren, started coming on to me. I thought she was married. But I found out she had divorced her husband for cheating on her 3 years ago. I never kept up with office gossip. One afternoon, Lauren came into my office and shut the door. Ryan, I want you to know I'm thinking of quitting. Or transferring to another department. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Are you unhappy with your job? She smiled. Oh no, Ryan. I love working for you. But if I plan on being your future wife, I can't be working directly for you. That would violate the company's fraternization policy. So I need to quit. Or move departments. So which is it? I stared at her, stunned. Lauren. This is sudden. I motioned for her to sit down. She locked the door, then sat across from me. I had no idea you felt that way about me, I admitted. Lauren leaned forward, smiling. Ryan, I know things were rough at home. I could see it. And when your best friend kills himself, your wife suddenly takes off, and then she dies in an accident the next day. I put 2 and 2 together. She cheated on you with Jake, didn't she? I said nothing. Lauren nodded. That means you're free game again. And I want first dibs. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Lauren, I'm flattered. I really am. But I have no plans to get married again. Or to even date. I looked at her seriously. But if I ever do, I'll let you know. Lauren grinned. Good. Because there will be a lot of women after you now, Ryan. And I get first shot. She winked, then walked out. I leaned back in my chair, shook my head, took a deep breath. One day at a time. That's all I could do. 1 foot in front of the other, and just keep stepping. Betrayal, loss, and a shattered life. Could you forgive? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.